You want to stop letting your days slip away and start leading your life with intention and purpose to pursue your full potential? Then you're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to the Claim Your Day podcast. I'm your host, Nick Maisie. Here, we stop just managing our demanding lives and begin to actively pursue our best lives, rooted in our values and purpose. Each week, we'll discuss practical strategies focused on becoming intentional with all that we do so we can live and lead well. Together, let's make today count. Hello, my friend, and welcome. Welcome to episode 48 of the Claim Your Day podcast. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're joining in because this podcast is for you, to help you to claim your day, to be intentional with your choices and living out your values, leading your life in a way that's meaningful. If you're brand new, this is your first episode, then we're actually wrapping up a series right now. It's just a short 3-episode series, all about exploring our values and making a plan to live them out. If you missed the previous 2 episodes, make sure you check them out. But if you've been with us, then you know we've talked about the differences between our true values, those things that are core, to our being and who we are. Those most important, valuable things in our lives. And we talked about the difference between that and wishes and wants and demands from outside, like external demands from society, other people we know, and what they say is important. We talked about those differences. And then we started in the last episode, we dove into really clarifying our values. Yes, if I ask you, hey, what's important to you? You definitely can rattle off a few things. Of course, I can do the same thing. But if we're not intentional with exploring what is a true value, what is a true value versus the things that we want and actually that are important to us, if we don't kind of differentiate between that and really explore what is the most important things, then we're just going to get caught up in the demands and the pressures of life. That's how it is. So if you've missed those episodes, go back and check them out. But if you haven't, then you've identified, those true values in your life. Now, how do you move from just having them on paper to actually letting them guide your choices and to help you to navigate the demands of life, especially when it's so busy? How do you move from, I know what my values are, to those actually impacting your life and ensuring that you're living in a way that you're thriving, that you're being intentional and living that out? So how do you make that shift from just being on paper to actually the actions? Well, that's what we're going to dive into today. Briefly, I just want you, I like doing this at the beginning, just do a little bit of mental visualization to think about something. So think about, that professional that wants to excel in their career, wants to have that significant impact with their vocation, but also it cares about their family and is a parent and is trying to live a good family life and have that significance there as well. So you think about this person and think about them clarifying their top values and intentionally adjusting their routines, and even saying some hard no's that are challenging, but so they can be intentional and leading their lives and their families and at work with more energy and a profound sense of purpose. Now, that sounds amazing. I don't know. It sounds amazing to me, and that's what I'm pursuing in my life. Now, it's challenging. It's definitely challenging to translate these sometimes almost abstract things about our values and to translate that to some concrete actions and choices that we're going to make throughout our busy schedules. I know it's challenging, but that's what we're going to dive into in this episode. It's about prioritizing your most important values and then intentionally bringing those in to our daily choices and the actions and the boundaries that we set so that we can thrive, so we can pursue our potential and live out our purpose and really build a life that's intentional and it's aligned with what's most important. So how are we going to do that? Well, I got a couple points in this episode. We got 4 simple points. The first one, it's all about prioritizing your top values, those pillars in your life. Now, in the last episode, we dove into some methods to explore what those values might be for you so that you get to the ones that really resonate with you. But there's probably more than one. There might be a number of things that are really important to you. It's not that some on the list aren't important, but we have to prioritize them. And so here, there's just a few simple things that you can do. Once you have your big list of values, then there's 2 little tests that you can do that are, like I said, they're really simple, but they can help you kind of narrow it down. If you can get your core values down to about 3 to 5, it'll help you to focus on them. You're not going to neglect the rest of them. But when rubber meets the road, when stuff hits the fan, what are your top core pillars of this value list for your life? 3 to 5 helps you to really focus and helps you to prioritize. So when you are making choices, especially challenging ones with a lot of demands, you're making the ones that are right for you. So first little way that you can make this prioritize this list is kind of the non-negotiable test. If everything was stripped away, what 3 to 5 values you would absolutely refuse to compromise on? That's the non-negotiable test. And the future test, I love this one. It's not so pleasant sometimes, but it's so powerful. I want you to think way down the road. The legacy that you're leaving, once you've gone, how do you want to be remembered? What values do you want to define your legacy? Okay? So those 2 tests, non-negotiable and kind of the legacy test, are simple ways to say, hey, these values are what's most important. So once you kind of get down to your top 3 to 5, that's the first point, is prioritizing those pillars, those values that are at the top of the list, those top 3 to 5. Then we have to start to make a decision filter. And with this, you're going to have to use those priorities, and you're going to have to start to think about how you can adjust your choices, saying yes to some things, saying no to some other things. So how are you going to be able to adjust your choices so that you can really put them through the filter of your values? Begin to think about this. It's about aligning your actions, what's really truly most important to you. What is most important to you because of the values that you just prioritized. So think about it. What is most important to you? You're going to begin to create this filter that your choices are going to go through, and it's going to be those top 3 to 5 values that you've prioritized. So that's the second point. You're going to prioritize your values. You're going to begin to create a filter. And now I want you to think about the third point is how these small actions can really lead to a big impact. You're living out your values. A lot of times it's in that daily routine. It's in the daily habit. It's in the small choices and the small actions that you're making that are going to really end up creating your life. So how can you weave into your daily routine these values that you've just said are most important to your life? If family's at the top of that list, and having a family connection and really having those close-knit relationships. If that's your top value, then it might be something as simple as scheduling a few minutes where the family gets together and they play, or having a meal together that's tech-free, everyone puts their phones away. Or what kind of activity could you be doing? It doesn't need to be a massive family vacation to honor that value that you set. Now, it could be, obviously, but let's face it. This podcast is here for people that are busy, that are trying to keep up, that have a lot of demands of their time, attention, energy. And so we want to be able to make the most of our time. Sometimes it is really finding those small blocks. What if growth was one of your values? Well, this might be just scheduling a few minutes daily for reading, personal development, growth, journaling. You can explore what that exact activity is. And in this podcast, we'll dive into personal growth, obviously, and different things that you can do to help pursue your potential. But right now, I want you to be thinking about what kind of small actions can you take and you build into your routine that you can schedule that will honor the values that you've just selected. Start with small actions because they do have that big impact, especially when you repeat them and it ends up building your routine on what you do on a daily basis. That makes up your life. So the first three little points so that you can begin to have the values that you identified in the last episode to really impact your life and begin to come through in how you live. First, you got to prioritize them. You begin to view your decisions and choices that you're making through the lens of your values. You begin to integrate those values through that filter into your small actions that you do daily, weekly, and that are your routine, because the small actions can have a big impact. Small steps will take you a great distance. Now, the fourth point, I started to kind of allude to this when we talked about the filter, is that you have to be willing to say no to things that don't align with your core values, those pillars that you set. You've got to be willing to say no to things that don't align with your core pillars in your life. You've got to protect your time and energy for what truly matters. Because every time you say yes to something that is outside of those core values, it's going to impact your ability to say yes to those core values. It's like when you say no in one area, then it gives you the space to say yes in another. But if you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values, in all likelihood, it's going to force you to say no to your values. How you spend your choices is vital. It's not fun to say no, especially when it's to something that could be, important, but it's just not one of your core values, one of those pillars for your life. It's hard to say no to somebody that's a friend. Especially when they ask you something and it sounds pretty reasonable. But if you said yes to it, you would have to end up saying no to one of your core values. That's challenging. Being intentional is tough a whole lot of times, but that's okay. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be meaningful and purposeful. It's supposed to find that fulfillment by living out your core values. And to do that, you got to set those boundaries. You got to be willing to say no. In order to live intentionally and to have that integrity in your life, you got to understand the value of having values, how purposeful they are. And the difference between those and just wants and wishes. You got to identify your values and then prioritize them and make a plan to live them out. Intentionality does take work, but it leads to that fulfillment and that purpose for your life. So I want to encourage you just to spend the time to get clear on your values and to really find that deep sense of purpose by beginning to live them out. So quick recap and just some action steps for this week is finalize that list of your top values. Take the bigger list of values that you created and prioritize that list. And find those top values. Like I said, 3 to 5, and write them down and make them clear, make them visible. And then daily, I want you to just look at each one and daily find a way to integrate it into your life. Find a way. It might be saying yes to one thing. It might be saying no to something different. It might be a small little daily habit that you're going to create or something that you're going to do to be able to live out that values and live a little bit more intentionally. And when decisions come your way, especially the bigger ones, before you make that next significant decision or before you make that next small decision, think about it, big and small, okay? Pause just for a moment and ask yourself, does this choice align with my top values? Will saying yes to this cause me to have to say no to one of my top values? So you're going to prioritize your list, you're going to build it into your day, and then you're going to make sure you filter your choices through those top values. That's how you're going to begin to live more intentionally. That's how you're going to live with more purpose and fulfillment, by living out your values on a daily basis through your actions and your choices. And to help you to do this, I've created a simple little initial guide for intentionally living out your choices. You can find it at nickmazy.com. It's there just to help you to walk through what we've discussed in this series of identifying your values and being able to bring them into the choices that you make so that you can live the life you want to live, so you can be intentional with what you do. You can claim your day, my friend. Living your values and leading your life, that is amazing. It is worth it, and you can do it. This isn't about perfection, but it's about making consistent, intentional choices that build your life to one that's aligned with your core values, that you can find that fulfillment by living with purpose. Thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening to this series. Don't just listen. Take action, my friend. Take action. All right. Thank you for listening again. Can't wait to talk to you in the next episode. Take care.